Don't leave me tonight. A dying billionaire heiress calls the wrong number. Then a single dad shows up. I need a partner. Not real. Just someone to stand beside me publicly, Lydia whispered, her pale face illuminated by the harsh hospital lights. Someone genuine, not a paid actor or ambitious executive. Ethan Cole stared at the billionaire media mogul, her four tubes a stark reminder of her mortality, despite her wealth. You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend? A complete stranger you misdialed at 2 a.m.? Her blue eyes locked with his. I want you to be my shield. In return, I can secure your daughter's future. And if I refuse? Lydia's lips formed a sad smile. Then tomorrow, the board votes me out. I lose everything I've built. And I face my final days entirely alone. The silence between them felt electric, charged with an impossible choice. Have you ever wondered what would happen if fate connected two broken souls through a simple wrong number? Would you answer a desperate call in the middle of the night? And what price would you pay to save a stranger's life, or your own? Welcome to Mr. Stephen Love Stories. If you believe in life's unexpected connections, hit that like button right now and subscribe to join our community of storytellers. Your support helps our channel grow, allowing us to bring you more powerful stories that touch your heart. Now, let's discover how a mistaken phone call changed two lives forever. The moonlight spilled through the hospital window, casting long shadows across Lydia Harrington's private suite. Machines hummed quietly, monitoring each heartbeat with clinical precision. At 42, she commanded a media empire valued in the billions, yet tonight she lay alone, her wealth powerless against the leukemia ravaging her body. Pain spiked through her chest, prompting her to reach for her phone. With trembling fingers, she dialed Mason's number, her ambitious board member who'd promised to bring urgent company documents. The line connected, but the voice that answered belonged to a stranger. Hello? The man's voice was deep, edged with the roughness of interrupted sleep. Is this Mason? Lydia whispered, her voice weaker than she'd intended. No, I think you have the wrong number. Embarrassment flooded her. I'm sorry to disturb you. She disconnected quickly, cursing her mistake. Minutes later, as another wave of pain crashed over her, Lydia tried again. This time her fingers were so unsteady, she must have misdialed again, because the same voice answered. Hello? He sounded more alert now. I'm sorry, she gasped, unable to hide her distress. I keep getting your number instead of my colleagues. The silence stretched for a moment. Are you all right? You sound like you're in pain. I'm fine. Lydia lied automatically, the response ingrained after months of projecting strength to nervous shareholders. You don't sound fine, he said simply. Something in his tone, genuine concern without pity, broke through her carefully constructed walls. I'm at St. Augustine Medical Center, she admitted. Room 412. And I'm very much not fine. Why she shared this with a complete stranger, Lydia couldn't say. Perhaps it was the medication clouding her judgment, or perhaps it was the unbearable weight of facing another night alone with her mortality. I'm on my way, he said, and the line went dead. Across town in a modest two-bedroom apartment, Ethan Cole sat frozen on the edge of his bed, phone still clutched in his hand. Had he really just promised to visit a stranger in the hospital at 2:17 in the morning? He glanced at the doorway to his daughter's room. Sophie was 12, old enough to stay alone for an hour, but the thought made his chest tighten. He ran his calloused hands through his disheveled hair. The double shift at the dockyard had left him bone-tired, but something in that woman's voice had reached through the phone and grabbed hold of his heart. It was the same quiet desperation he'd heard in his late wife's voice during her final months. This is crazy, he muttered, already reaching for his jeans. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that ignoring the call would haunt him forever. He dialed his neighbor, Mrs. Winters, waiting anxiously as the phone rang 4 times before she answered. Ethan, is everything all right? Mrs. Winters' voice was thick with sleep. I'm so sorry to wake you, but there's an emergency. Could you possibly come over and stay with Sophie for an hour? A pause. Of course, dear. Give me 5 minutes. True to her word, the elderly woman arrived promptly, waving away Ethan's profuse thanks. Go do what you need to do. Sophie and I will be fine. 20 minutes later, Ethan found himself navigating the fluorescent-lit corridors of St. Augustine Medical Center, questioning his sanity with each step. The hospital's premium wing screamed wealth and privilege. A far cry from the public ward where his wife had spent her final days. Room 412 was at the end of a private hallway. He knocked softly, half hoping there would be no answer. "Come in," called a weak voice. The woman on the bed wasn't what he expected. Despite the paleness of her complexion and the 4 lines snaking from her arm, she radiated a composed dignity. Her sharp eyes assessed him as he hesitated in the doorway. "You actually came," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "I said I would." Ethan shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny. "I'm Ethan Cole. Lydia Harrington." The name registered immediately. Harrington Global Media's logo dominated the city skyline. Her company, her legacy. Ethan suddenly felt wildly out of place in his worn jeans and faded t-shirt. "I should go," he said, already backing toward the door. Please don't." Her voice, though soft, carried unmistakable authority. The call wasn't an accident. Not the second time. Ethan stopped. "What do you mean?" "I mean I was alone and afraid, and you sounded kind." Her candor was disarming. "Would you sit?" Just for a moment. Against his better judgment, Ethan sank into the chair beside her bed. A strange silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with unspoken questions. "Why are you here?" he finally asked. "In the hospital, I mean. Leukemia. Aggressive variant." Lydia's mouth twisted into something approximating a smile. "Ironic that after building an empire, I can't even control what happens in my own bloodstream." Ethan nodded, understanding more than she realized. Loss had a way of stripping away pretenses. "My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer too." Lydia's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "Me too." He gestured to the hospital room. "Is there someone I should call for you? Family? Friends?" A shadow crossed her face. "My board member, Mason Blackwell, was supposed to come. Urgent business matters." She laughed without humor. "But it seems even dying CEOs are expected to wait their turn." Ethan frowned. "That's not right." "No, but it's business." Lydia shifted, wincing. "You mentioned a wife. Do you have children?" "A daughter. Sophie. She's 12. His face brightened automatically at the thought of her. "Smart as a whip and twice as sharp. You must be very proud." "Every day." Ethan hesitated. "What about you?" "No children. No partner. The company became my family." She closed her eyes briefly. "Now I'm discovering that corporations make poor companions in hospital rooms." Something about her vulnerability struck a chord in Ethan. He recognized the look of someone fighting a battle on multiple fronts, not just against illness, but against isolation. "The board is moving to remove me," she said suddenly. "They've caught wind of my prognosis. Mason's leading the charge." Ethan's brow furrowed. "They can do that? While you're sick?" "They can and they will, unless." Lydia paused, studying him with new intensity. "Ethan, would you consider an unusual proposition?" "What kind of proposition?" he asked cautiously. "I need a partner. Not real, just someone to stand beside me publicly. Someone genuine, not a hired actor or ambitious executive." Her eyes held his. "Public sympathy could buy me time to secure my position and complete my treatments." "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" Ethan was incredulous. "I want you to be my shield," she corrected. "In return, I can offer security for your daughter's future." "I can't just." "Think about it," Lydia interrupted. "Please. I wouldn't ask if I had other options." Ethan stood, pacing the small area beside her bed. "This is insane. We don't even know each other." "Perhaps that's better," Lydia replied. "No messy entanglements. Just a straightforward arrangement." "There's nothing straightforward about this." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "I'm a dockyard electrician. I don't belong in your world. That's precisely why you're perfect. You're authentic, grounded." Her voice softened. "And you came when a stranger called. Do you know how rare that is?" Ethan paused, memories of his own struggles washing over him. After Rachel died, the medical bills had nearly drowned them. Even now, making ends meet was a constant battle. Sophie deserved better than the cramped apartment, the second-hand clothes, the constant worry about tomorrow. "I have conditions," he said finally. Hope flickered across Lydia's face. "Name them." "Sophie stays out of this. No photos, no publicity, nothing that puts her in the public eye." "Agreed. Absolutely. I keep my job. This doesn't interfere with my work schedule." Lydia nodded. "We can work around it. And there's an end date." This doesn't go on indefinitely. 6 months, Lydia offered. By then, either the board will have stabilized or... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. What exactly would I be committing to? Occasional public appearances. Hospital visits when I have treatments. Perhaps a few carefully arranged candid moments for the press. Lydia's business acumen was evident even from her hospital bed. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that compromises your integrity. Ethan's mind raced with the possibilities. And the risks. And in return, a trust fund for Sophie's education. Full college tuition regardless of where she's accepted. And legal protection for you, against any potential consequences. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of decision. One more condition, Ethan said finally. Complete honesty between us. No surprises, no hidden agendas. Deal. Lydia extended her hand, fragile but determined. As Ethan's calloused fingers closed around hers, neither could have predicted how this business arrangement would transform them both. As dawn broke over the city, Ethan found himself signing papers witnessed by Lydia's oncologist, Dr. Billionaire Heiress, and a stone-faced attorney who'd arrived with remarkable promptness given the hour. This protects both parties, the lawyer explained, indicating the document's key points. Fixed term of 6 months, specific appearance requirements, compensation details, and confidentiality provisions. Dr. Heiress, a tall woman with kind eyes behind stylish glasses, regarded Ethan with undisguised curiosity. You understand what you're agreeing to, Mr. Cole? I believe so. The doctor's gaze lingered a moment longer before she signed as witness. Lydia needs rest now. Perhaps you could return this evening? Ethan nodded, suddenly exhausted. The reality of what he'd committed to was beginning to sink in. He glanced at Lydia, who had drifted into a light sleep, her features softened by exhaustion. Take care of her, he said to Dr. Heiress. The doctor's expression warmed. I always do. And Mr. Cole? Thank you. She needs someone in her corner right now. The morning sun had fully risen by the time Ethan returned home. Mrs. Winters had fallen asleep on the couch, a dog-eared paperback resting on her chest. He thanked her profusely, pressed a $20 bill into her reluctant hand, and collapsed into bed for a few precious hours before his shift. That evening, as promised, he returned to the hospital. Lydia was sitting up, her laptop open, looking remarkably more composed than the previous night. You came back, she said, closing her computer. I signed a contract, Ethan replied, but his smile softened the words. So you did. Lydia gestured to a chair. We should discuss logistics. The hospital is discharging me tomorrow. My public relations team will release a carefully worded statement about my health situation, mentioning that I'm surrounded by loved ones during this difficult time. And I'm one of those loved ones. Precisely. We'll need to be seen together relatively soon. She studied him thoughtfully. Do you own a suit? Ethan laughed despite himself. One. For funerals and job interviews. It'll have to do for now. We can arrange for something more appropriate later. I draw the line at makeovers, Ethan warned. Lydia's lips quirked. Noted. Though a haircut wouldn't kill you. The easy banter surprised them both. For a moment, it felt almost normal, two people planning an outing, not a strategic public deception. What about Sophie? Lydia asked. How will you explain this to her? Ethan's expression sobered. The truth. A simplified version, but the truth. She's old enough to understand, and I've never lied to her. She might not approve. Probably not, at first. Ethan sighed. But she'll understand it's for her future. The next day, a carefully orchestrated hospital discharge created the perfect opportunity for their first public appearance. Photographers happened to be present as Ethan helped Lydia into a waiting car, his hand supportively at her elbow, her face tilted toward his with practiced gratitude. By evening, the photos were everywhere. Harrington Media CEO finds love amid health battle. Sophie stared at the headline on her tablet, her young face creased with confusion. Dad? What is this? Ethan sat beside her on their worn couch, choosing his words carefully. Remember how I told you I met someone who needs help? This is part of that. But it says you're in love with her. Sophie's voice carried a note of betrayal. We're not. It's complicated. MS. Harrington is very sick, and some people are trying to take her company away because of it. Having me around helps protect her. Sophie's sharp eyes, so like her mother's, narrowed. And what do we get? Ethan winced at her directness. Sophie. No, I want to know. Because people at school are already talking. Jaden Parker's mom saw the pictures and told him you're dating the media lady from the downtown billboards. Ethan took a deep breath. Ms. Harrington is setting up a trust fund. For your college education. Sophie stood abruptly. So you're getting paid to pretend to like her? That's gross, Dad. It's not like that, Sophie. It's a business arrangement. Yes, but it's also about helping someone who's alone and fighting for her life. Ethan reached for his daughter's hand. Remember how many people helped us when Mom was sick? Sophie pulled away, tears welling in her eyes. Mom died anyway. The words hung between them, raw and painful. Ethan had no response as Sophie stormed to her room, slamming the door behind her. The following days brought a whirlwind of changes. Lydia's PR team carefully crafted their public narrative. The hardworking single father who'd met the media mogul through a mutual friend, their connection blossoming despite her diagnosis. Each appearance was meticulously planned, each photograph seemingly candid, yet perfectly composed. If you're finding this story of unexpected connection and sacrifice moving, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Mr. Steven Love Stories. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue sharing these powerful human stories. Now, let's return to Ethan and Lydia's journey as their carefully constructed facade begins to face real challenges. Behind the scenes, Ethan struggled to balance his new role with his real life. Sophie remained distant, responding with monosyllables when he tried to engage her. At work, his colleagues alternated between awkward congratulations and barely concealed skepticism. Gold digger. He overheard one coworker mutter in the break room. Ethan gritted his teeth and focused on the job. The comments hurt, but he'd survived worse. For Sophie's future, he could endure a few months of gossip. The real test came a week later. Sophie arrived home from school with reddened eyes and a tight expression that reminded Ethan painfully of Rachel. What happened? He asked, immediately setting aside the tie he'd been struggling with for an evening event with Lydia. Nothing. Sophie, please. Talk to me. She threw her backpack onto the kitchen counter. Meredith Thompson said her mom saw online that you're only with Ms. Harrington for her money. She said. Sophie's voice broke. She said you sold yourself. White-hot anger flooded Ethan's veins. That's not true, and Meredith's mother should know better than to gossip about things she doesn't understand. But is it that different from the truth? Sophie challenged, tears finally spilling over. You're pretending to care about a stranger for money. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but his phone buzzed. Lydia's driver was waiting downstairs. The timing couldn't have been worse. We'll talk about this when I get back, he promised, reaching for his jacket. Sophie's laugh was bitter beyond her years. Sure, Dad. Don't keep your girlfriend waiting. That night, Ethan was distracted throughout the charity gala. Lydia, resplendent in a midnight blue gown that concealed her thinness, noticed immediately. What's wrong? She asked during a quiet moment between photo opportunities. It's Sophie. She's having a hard time with this situation. Lydia's expression softened. I'm sorry. Children are perceptive. She knows this isn't real. It's more than that. She's being bullied about it. Concern flickered across Lydia's face. That's unacceptable. Perhaps we should. Ms. Harrington. A photographer approached, camera raised. Could we get a shot of the happy couple by the fountain? Lydia's public smile returned instantly, her hand finding Ethan's in a gesture that had become second nature. Of course. Later that night, after the event, Lydia's car dropped Ethan at his apartment building. To his surprise, she stepped out with him. What are you doing? He asked. I'd like to speak with Sophie, if that's all right. Ethan hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. She's pretty upset. Which is exactly why I should speak with her. Lydia's determination was evident. No cameras, no press. Just us. Upstairs, they found Sophie still awake, curled on the couch with a book. Her eyes widened at the sight of Lydia Harrington in their modest living room. Hello, Sophie, Lydia said, her voice gentler than Ethan had ever heard it. I hope you don't mind me dropping by so late. Sophie glanced at her father before responding. It's fine, I guess. May I sit? Lydia gestured to the armchair across from Sophie. At the girl's nod, Lydia carefully lowered herself, arranging her elegant gown around her. In the apartment's harsh lighting, Ethan could see the toll the evening had taken on her. the carefully concealed pallor, the slight tremor in her hands. Your father tells me you're having a difficult time with our arrangement. Sophie's chin lifted. It's weird. And people are saying mean things. I imagine they are. Lydia nodded. People can be cruel when they don't understand something. What's there to understand? You're paying my dad to pretend he likes you. Ethan winced, but Lydia didn't flinch. That's a fair assessment, though perhaps lacking some nuance. Would you like to know the whole truth? Sophie's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but curiosity won out. Yes. I'm dying, Sophie. Lydia stated it plainly, without self-pity. My doctors are fighting it, and I'm fighting it, but there's a very real possibility that I won't survive the year. The people who run my company with me, my board members, they know this, and some of them are trying to remove me from power before I can complete the projects that matter most to me. Sophie's expression softened slightly. Like what projects? Education initiatives, healthcare access programs, things that won't make the company as much money as other ventures, but that will help people who need it. So you needed my dad to what? Make people feel sorry for you. Lydia smiled at the girl's directness. In essence, yes. Public sympathy buys me time. And your father was kind enough, brave enough, to help a stranger when she called in the middle of the night. Sophie considered this, her young face serious. But why are you helping me go to college? You don't even know me. Because your father is giving up his privacy and risking his reputation to help me. The least I can do is ensure his daughter has opportunities. Lydia leaned forward slightly. I never had children, Sophie. Perhaps because I was too focused on my company. But I've always believed that education is the most valuable gift one can give. The room fell silent as Sophie processed this. Finally, she asked, Are you scared? Of dying, I mean. The question caught Lydia off guard. Her carefully maintained composure faltered for just a moment. Yes, she admitted. Very much so. My mom was too. She didn't say it, but I could tell. Sophie's voice was suddenly small. Dad stayed with her every night in the hospital. He didn't sleep for, a week at the end. Lydia's eyes met Ethan's over Sophie's head, something unspoken passing between them. Your father is a good man, Lydia said softly. I'm lucky to have found him, even under these strange circumstances. Sophie seemed to come to a decision. If people are mean about you guys, it's their problem. I can handle it. Relief flooded Ethan's face. Thank you, sweetheart. But, Sophie added, turning to Lydia, you have to actually help him. He works too hard and forgets to eat lunch, and his back hurts from the lifting at the dockyard, but he won't go to the doctor because it costs too much. Lydia's lips twitched with amusement. I'll do my best to look after him. As Lydia prepared to leave, Sophie surprised both adults by giving the billionaire a quick, awkward hug. Good luck with your cancer, she whispered. In the hallway outside the apartment, Ethan struggled to find the right words. Thank you for that. She needed to hear it from you. She's remarkable, Lydia replied. You've raised her well. I'm trying. Ethan hesitated. Are you okay to get home? You look exhausted. Concern from Ethan still felt foreign to Lydia, who was accustomed to people deferring to her rather than caring for her. I'm fine. The car is waiting. But as if to contradict her words, a wave of dizziness washed over her. Ethan's strong arm quickly steadied her. I've got you, he said, his voice close to her ear. For a moment, Lydia allowed herself to lean into his strength, wondering how something so false could feel so genuine. The following weeks brought a rhythm to their unusual arrangement. Ethan accompanied Lydia to treatments and board meetings, standing protectively nearby as she fought battles on multiple fronts. For her part, Lydia began including Sophie in small, private ways, sending books she thought the girl might enjoy, arranging for a top math tutor when Ethan mentioned Sophie was struggling with advanced algebra. Mason Blackwell watched these developments with calculating eyes. The board member had temporarily retreated but not surrendered. He waited, gathering ammunition, looking for weaknesses in Lydia's carefully constructed narrative. His opportunity came when a junior employee in the legal department mentioned the unusual timing of the contract between Lydia and Ethan. Within days, partial details of Lydia's medical records appeared in a tabloid, alongside insinuations about her relationship with the dockworker boyfriend. The fallout was immediate. Harrington Global Media's stock dipped sharply. Board members began receiving concerned calls from major shareholders. And Lydia, pushing herself too hard as always, collapsed during a televised board meeting. Ethan, who had been waiting outside as the meeting ran long, burst through the doors at the commotion. Cameras captured his genuine panic as he rushed to Lydia's side, cradling her unconscious form until the paramedics arrived. In the ambulance, he held her hand tightly, his fear no longer an act. "Stay with me," he whispered, the words meant for her alone. "Please, Lydia, stay with me." At the hospital, Dr. Reyes met them with a grim expression. "Her white cell count has spiked dangerously. We need to begin an aggressive new treatment protocol immediately." "Do whatever it takes," Ethan said, surprised by the ferocity in his own voice. "She's going to need constant support through this phase," Dr. Reyes warned. "The side effects are brutal." Ethan didn't hesitate. "I'll be here." Later, when Lydia regained consciousness, she found Ethan asleep in the chair beside her bed, his hands still wrapped around hers. Something had shifted between them, the pretense peeling away to reveal something neither had anticipated. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He woke instantly, leaning forward. "Hey, welcome back. How bad is it?" Ethan considered sugarcoating the truth, then remembered their agreement. "Pretty bad. New treatment protocol. Dr. Reyes says it'll be rough." Lydia closed her eyes briefly. "The board meeting. Don't worry about that now. I have to worry." Her grip tightened on his hand. "Mason will use this to push for an emergency vote. Then we'll fight him," Ethan said simply. "But first, you focus on getting stronger." As Lydia predicted, Mason moved quickly to capitalize on her weakened state. What he hadn't anticipated was the public reaction to the images of Ethan's desperate rush to Lydia's side. The authenticity of his concern had resonated with people, transforming what many had dismissed as a publicity relationship into a compelling human story. If you're invested in Ethan and Lydia's journey and want to see how their relationship evolves beyond business arrangement to something deeper, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Mr. Steven Love Stories. Your support allows us to continue sharing these emotional stories of connection and transformation. Now, let's return to our story as Lydia faces her most challenging battle yet. Dr. Reyes wasn't exaggerating about the treatment's brutality. Lydia's body, already weakened by months of illness, rebelled against the powerful drugs. She lost weight she couldn't afford to lose, her lustrous hair fell out in clumps, and the pain often left her gasping. Through it all, Ethan remained steadfast. He rearranged his work schedule to be present for treatments, learning from nurses how to manage symptoms and provide comfort. When Lydia insisted he couldn't keep commuting between the hospital and his apartment, he reluctantly accepted her offer to use the guest house on her estate. "It's practical," she argued weakly from her hospital bed. "You'll be close by, and Sophie can have her own space when she visits on weekends." Sophie, to everyone's surprise, had become Lydia's most devoted supporter. She brought homework to complete during Lydia's treatments, read aloud when Lydia was too tired to hold a book, and fiercely defended her to anyone who dared question the relationship. "My dad and Lydia love each other," she informed a nosy checkout clerk who recognized them at the grocery store. "And it's none of your business anyway." Later, Ethan gently corrected her. "Sophie, you know our arrangement with Lydia is." "I know what it was," Sophie interrupted. "But it's different now. I can tell." Ethan couldn't argue. Something had changed, though he wasn't ready to name it. In the quiet hours of Lydia's treatment, they had begun sharing parts of themselves previously kept hidden. "Tell me about your wife," Lydia asked one evening, as they sat in the garden of her estate during a rare good day. Ethan hesitated. "Are you sure you want to hear about that? I want to know what shaped you. What still matters to you?" So he told her about Rachel, her laugh that could fill a room, her passion for teaching, her quiet courage during her illness. In turn, Lydia shared stories of her childhood with emotionally distant parents who measured love and achievements, her early business struggles, her brief, disastrous relationship with Claire Rowan, a fellow executive who had chosen career advancement over their partnership. "I've never been loved without an agenda," Lydia admitted one night, as Ethan helped her back to bed after a particularly difficult treatment session. "Every relationship came with expectations, conditions." "That's not love," Ethan said quietly. "That's transaction." Lydia's smile was tinged with irony. "Says the man who signed a contract to be with me. That was different." "Was it?" Ethan tucked the blanket around her thin shoulders. You know it was. Is. As weeks passed, Lydia's condition stabilized enough for her to work limited hours from home. She was reviewing financial reports one afternoon when Ethan entered her study, his expression troubled. What's wrong? She asked immediately. Sophie's school called. Some kids have been giving her a hard time again. Apparently, Mason Blackwell gave an interview implying our relationship is a sham to manipulate stock prices. Anger flashed in Lydia's eyes. That's crossing a line. I agree. But what can we do? Sue him for telling a version of the truth. Lydia was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if we change the narrative completely? Meaning, we launch something together. Something meaningful that has nothing to do with stock prices or board control. Excitement brought color to Lydia's pale cheeks. The Harrington Bridge Project, a community media initiative focused on education and healthcare, particularly for single-parent families. Ethan considered this. You think that would help? It would give our relationship a purpose beyond my corporate position, and it would create something lasting, regardless of what happens to me. The unspoken possibility hung between them. Despite the treatments, Lydia's prognosis remained uncertain. I think it's brilliant, Ethan said finally. But it has to be genuine. No PR stunts. Completely genuine, Lydia agreed. We'll start small. Partner with local schools, fund medical research, create scholarship opportunities. The project came together with remarkable speed, fueled by Lydia's business acumen and Ethan's practical perspective. They launched with little fanfare. A simple press release and a modest event at Sophie's school, where Lydia announced a technology upgrade for the computer lab and a new scholarship program. Public response was immediate and positive. Local media covered the initiative extensively, focusing on the project's goals rather than Lydia's health or her relationship with Ethan. Major shareholders, impressed by the community goodwill generated, began expressing renewed confidence in Lydia's leadership. Mason Blackwell watched these developments with mounting frustration. His carefully orchestrated takeover was unraveling. In desperation, he reached out to the one person who might share his desire to separate Ethan and Lydia. Claire Rowan, Lydia's ambitious ex-partner, now leading a rival media company. Ms. Rowan, Mason said smoothly during their lunch meeting. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Claire's smile didn't reach her eyes. When someone offers information about Lydia Harrington, I make time. What do you have? Mason slid a folder across the table. Evidence that her touching romance with the dock worker is entirely fabricated. A contract, signed the night they supposedly met, outlining payment terms and appearance requirements. Claire leafed through the documents, her expression hardening. Where did you get these? Does it matter? They're authentic. And what do you want from me? Use your media platform to expose the truth. Create enough pressure that the board has no choice but to remove her. Claire closed the folder deliberately. And in return, favorable coverage when I become CEO. Exclusive interviews. Advance notice of major corporate announcements. I'll consider it, Claire said, tucking the folder into her bag. What Mason failed to recognize was that Claire's bitterness toward Lydia had softened over the years, replaced by a grudging respect. After leaving the lunch, she drove directly to Lydia's estate, requesting a private meeting. Ethan showed her into the sunroom where Lydia was working, then tactfully withdrew to give them privacy. Claire, Lydia said, surprised. This is unexpected. Consider it professional courtesy. Claire placed the folder on the table between them. Mason Blackwell approached me with these, asking me to run an expose on your relationship with Ethan Cole. Lydia's face remained impassive as she examined the contents. I see. Is it true? Was it all arranged from the beginning? It's complicated. Claire laughed without humor. It always is with you, Lydia. What are you going to do with this information? That depends. Claire leaned forward. Tell me the truth. Not the PR version, not the boardroom version. The real truth. Lydia was silent for a long moment, considering her options. Finally, she said, yes, it began as an arrangement. Ethan agreed to help me maintain control of the company during my treatment. But it's evolved into something neither of us anticipated. You're in love with him, Claire said, not a question but a realization. I don't know what I am, Lydia admitted. I've never felt this way before. Not even with me, Claire finished. I know. What will you do, Claire? Run the story. Claire studied the woman who had once been her partner, noting the new softness in her expression when she spoke of Ethan. No, but you should tell the truth yourself, before Mason finds someone else who will. After Claire left, Lydia sat motionless, weighing her options. When Ethan returned, concern evident on his face, she made her decision. Mason has a copy of our contract. He's shopping it to media outlets. She watched Ethan's expression carefully. I think we should control the narrative. Tell the truth ourselves. You want to admit we've been lying to everyone? Not lying exactly. The beginning was orchestrated, yes. But what's happened since then? Lydia trailed off, unable to define the connection that had formed between them. Ethan took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. Are you sure about this? The board could still vote against you. I'm sure. I'm tired of half-truths and strategic revelations. Whatever happens next, I want it to be based on honesty. The press conference was scheduled for the following day. Lydia insisted on standing despite her weakness, Ethan at her side as she addressed the assembled reporters. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia, she began, her voice steady. Shortly thereafter, my board member Mason Blackwell began maneuvering to remove me from my position as CEO of Harrington Global Media, the company I built from nothing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as photographers captured her every expression. In a moment of desperation, I reached out for help and found it in an unexpected place. Ethan Cole came into my life through what appeared to be chance, a wrong number dialed in the middle of the night. What many of you don't know is that our initial connection was formalized through a contractual agreement. Gasps and furious typing followed this revelation. Beside her, Ethan remained steadfast, his hand at the small of her back providing silent support. I offered financial security for his daughter in exchange for his public support during my illness. It was a business arrangement, clear and simple. Lydia paused, her gaze sweeping the room. At least, that's how it began. Her voice softened. What I never anticipated was finding a genuine connection with someone who saw me not as a CEO, not as a wealthy woman, but simply as a human being fighting for her life. Over these months, what started as a contract has become the most authentic relationship I've ever known. Ethan stepped forward then, taking over as Lydia's strength began to waver. We wanted to share the truth before others twisted it. Yes, our relationship had an unusual beginning. But the Harrington Bridge project is real. Our commitment to education and healthcare initiatives is real. And what's grown between us is real. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Harrington, will you be stepping down from your position in light of these revelations?" Lydia straightened, her determination evident. That decision lies with the board. But regardless of their vote, the work we've begun will continue. Some things are more important than corporate titles or stock prices. As they left the podium, cameras captured the moment Ethan gently supported Lydia, his protective gesture unmistakably genuine. Whatever the public might think of their unusual beginning, few could doubt the authenticity of their present connection. The story of Lydia and Ethan's unexpected journey has touched so many hearts. If you've enjoyed watching their relationship transform from a business arrangement to something truly meaningful, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Mr. Steven Love Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful tales of human connection. Now, let's see how Lydia and Ethan face the consequences of their honesty as they build a future neither could have imagined. The emergency board meeting was called for 9 a.m. the following day. Shareholders dialed in from around the globe, curiosity and concern driving unprecedented attendance. Lydia entered the boardroom with Ethan and Dr. Reyes, her legal team following close behind. Mason Blackwell sat at the far end of the table, his expression a careful mask of professional concern. Lydia, he greeted coolly. I must say, yesterday's performance was quite impressive. It wasn't a performance, Mason, Lydia replied, taking her seat at the head of the table. Unlike some, I've chosen transparency. The meeting began with formal introductions and an update on Lydia's medical condition from Dr. Reyes. Ms. Harrington's latest test results show a positive response to the new treatment protocol, the doctor explained. While her condition remains serious, there are encouraging signs of improvement. And what is the prognosis? Asked a shareholder from London. Cautiously optimistic, Dr. Reyes replied. Ms. Harrington is a fighter. Mason cleared his throat. While we're all relieved to hear of any improvement, the issue before us today isn't medical, but ethical. Ms. Harrington has admitted to essentially creating a fraudulent relationship to manipulate public perception and, by extension, stock value. That's a mischaracterization, Lydia's attorney interjected. The relationship evolved naturally from its initial parameters, as Ms. Harrington clearly stated yesterday. Convenient, Mason smiled thinly. But I have evidence that Mr. Cole recently accessed confidential company information regarding upcoming acquisitions. Information that could be extremely valuable to our competitors. Ethan's head snapped up. That's a lie. I've never accessed any company files. We have server logs indicating otherwise. Mason slid a document across the table. Your credentials were used to open sensitive documents at 2:14 a.m. last Tuesday. Lydia examined the logs, her expression darkening. I was in the hospital Tuesday night. Ethan was with me the entire time. Can anyone besides Mr. Cole verify that? Mason asked smoothly. I can, Dr. Reyes spoke up. I was on call that night. Mr. Cole never left Ms. Harrington's side. He even slept in the chair beside her bed. The nursing staff can confirm this as well. Mason's confident smile faltered slightly. Perhaps he shared his access credentials with someone else. Or perhaps, Lydia countered, someone used his credentials without permission. Someone with administrative access to our security systems. Her gaze locked with Mason's. Someone desperate to discredit him. The room fell silent as the implication hung in the air. A board member from Tokyo spoke up. Mr. Blackwell, these are serious allegations against both parties. Do you have additional evidence to support your claims against Mr. Cole? Mason shuffled his papers nervously. I'm simply raising concerns based on the information provided to me by our security team. Interesting, Lydia said. Because I took the liberty of having our head of cybersecurity trace the access route this morning. The login occurred from an IP address registered to the Grayport Grand Hotel, specifically, the business center on the lobby level. She paused meaningfully. Where you've been staying since your apartment renovation began last month. Color drained from Mason's face. That's circumstantial at best. Perhaps. But the hotel's security cameras showing you entering the business center at 2:07 a.m. and leaving at 2:22 a.m. are considerably more definitive. Murmurs rippled around the table as shareholders exchanged glances. Additionally, Lydia continued, our financial team has uncovered some concerning transactions between your personal accounts and a shell company that recently purchased a significant number of Harrington Global Media shares. It appears you've been positioning yourself to benefit financially from any leadership change. The meeting erupted into chaos as shareholders demanded answers. Mason attempted to defend himself, but the evidence mounted as Lydia's team methodically presented their findings, evidence they had been quietly gathering for weeks. By noon, the vote was completed. Mason Blackwell was removed from the board effective immediately, pending a full investigation into potential securities fraud. Lydia retained her position as CEO, though with an agreement to transition to a less demanding role as her treatment continued. As the boardroom emptied, Ethan squeezed Lydia's hand beneath the table. You knew about Mason's machinations all along. I suspected, she corrected. Claire's warning gave us the time we needed to find proof. You're formidable, you know that? Lydia smiled tiredly. So I've been told. Though right now, I'd trade formidable for a nap. Later that week, as Lydia rested in her garden, an unexpected visitor arrived. Patrick Reynolds, the company's CFO, requested a brief meeting. Patrick, Lydia greeted him from her chaise lounge. What brings you here? The older man shifted uncomfortably. The board has authorized me to make an offer to Mr. Cole. Ethan, who had been reading nearby, looked up with interest. What kind of offer? Financial compensation to conclude your arrangement with Ms. Harrington. Patrick avoided meeting either of their eyes. With Mason gone, the board feels the public relationship is no longer necessary for company stability. I see, Ethan said quietly. And how much is my departure worth? Patrick named a figure that would have made Ethan dizzy just months ago. Enough to buy a comfortable house, fund Sophie's education through graduate school, and still have plenty left over. Lydia's face remained carefully neutral. That's very generous, Patrick. The board values discretion and clean transitions, the CFO replied. Ethan stood, extending his hand to Patrick. Please convey my response to the board. Patrick looked relieved as he shook Ethan's hand. I'll draw up the paperwork immediately. That won't be necessary, Ethan said firmly. My answer is no. Patrick blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, I'm declining the offer. But the amount can be negotiated if. It's not about the money, Ethan interrupted. It never was, not really. Please tell the board that while I appreciate their offer, I have no intention of leaving Lydia. Not for any price. After Patrick left, Lydia turned to Ethan, her expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. You didn't have to do that. The contract ended when the board vote was completed. You're free to go. Ethan took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. What if I don't want to be free? What if, somewhere between that wrong number and today, I found exactly where I belong? Tears gathered in Lydia's eyes. Ethan, I'm still sick. The treatments are working, but there are no guarantees. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm choosing. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Sophie told me something interesting yesterday. She said, Dad, when Mom was sick, you stayed every night. That's what you do for family. Sophie said that. Lydia whispered. She did. And she's right. Ethan's voice grew husky with emotion. Somewhere along the way, Lydia, you and I became family. The kind that chooses each other, day after day. The months that followed brought both challenges and triumphs. Lydia's treatment continued, with gradually lengthening periods of strength between the difficult days. The Harrington Bridge Project expanded, funding educational technology for underserved schools and establishing a support network for families facing medical crises. Sophie thrived in her new role as unofficial junior advisor to the project, offering candid insights from a student's perspective that often proved more valuable than expensive consultant reports. She and Lydia developed a special bond, spending hours discussing books, business ethics, and the complexities of middle school social hierarchies. 5 months after the board showdown, Lydia received news that her cancer was in remission. Though Dr. Reyes cautioned that ongoing monitoring would be essential, the immediate threat had receded. That evening, the three of them celebrated quietly at home. Home now being Lydia's estate, where Ethan and Sophie had gradually migrated from the guest house to the main residence. Life settled into a new pattern. Ethan continued his work at the dockyard, refusing Lydia's offers of a company position. I like working with my hands, he explained. It keeps me grounded. Lydia reduced her corporate hours to focus on the bridge project, finding deeper satisfaction in this work than she'd ever experienced in boardroom battles. Sophie's school recital approached, a production of Our Town, where she had landed a supporting role. Despite having a major investor meeting the same evening, Lydia rearranged her schedule without hesitation. I wouldn't miss it, she told Sophie, helping her practice lines in the garden. Not for anything. The night of the recital, Ethan and Lydia sat in the school auditorium, hands clasped tightly as Sophie delivered her lines with poise beyond her years. When she took her bow, her eyes found them immediately in the crowd, her smile radiant under the stage lights. After the performance, as they walked through the parking lot, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then silenced it without answering. Who was that? Lydia asked. It could be important. Not more important than this moment, Ethan replied, slipping the phone into his pocket. Everything that really matters is right here. Sophie skipped ahead of them, still riding the high of her successful performance, while Ethan and Lydia followed hand in hand, their pace unhurried. I've been thinking, Lydia said after a comfortable silence. The 6-month mark of our original contract passed last week. So it did, Ethan agreed. I hadn't noticed. I was wondering if you might consider a new arrangement. Lydia's voice held a note of uncertainty rarely heard from the confident CEO. A more permanent one. Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her. Lydia Harrington, are you proposing to me in a middle school parking lot? I might be. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Is that a problem? Not at all. Ethan drew her close. It's perfectly imperfect. Just like us. Under the glow of streetlights, with Sophie calling impatiently for them to hurry up, Ethan kissed Lydia gently. Yes, he whispered against her lips. To whatever arrangement you're proposing, as long as it involves the three of us, together. Months later, As they gathered with friends and family for a small wedding ceremony in Lydia's garden, Sophie served as both bridesmaid and ring-bearer, beaming with pride as she watched her father and the woman who had become her second mother exchange vows. During the reception, Ethan's phone rang. For perhaps the first time in their relationship, Lydia saw him check the caller ID and silence it without a moment's hesitation, choosing instead to pull her onto the dance floor. "Wrong number?" she teased. "No such thing," Ethan replied, drawing her close. "Just the right person at exactly the right time. Sometimes the wrong number doesn't disrupt your life. It redirects it to precisely where you need to be." If this story of unexpected connection and found family touched your heart, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share Mr. Stephen Love stories with others who might need a reminder that love often finds us in the most unexpected ways. Your support helps our channel continue bringing these powerful human stories to life. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next week with another tale that reminds us why connections matter.